Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the weekly virtual plant clinic. My name is Colby Pitts. I am the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program Coordinator for Hernando County, and I am here with Bernie, who is a Master Gardener volunteer over with the IFAS Extension. Bernie, how you doing today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. I'm sorry about causing you to be late, but I had a client with some termite problems, and that kind of held me up a little bit. So I appreciate the delay, and sorry that I caused it.
Oh, it's not your fault. I think we're all good. I did put a comment out that was saying we appreciate your patience. We'll get started right away. So I think as always, if anyone watching, either live right now or recorded, you can leave any type of plant, landscape, water, pretty much anything. We're not giving medical or financial advice, but anything outside of that, you can go ahead and leave a comment, and we will do our best to answer those. Until then, I was thinking maybe Dr. Lester and I we did a kind of like a mobile plant clinic on Tuesday over at Timber Pines, and um, we had a lot of people who had little, bringing in plant samples of little like yard weeds. And for those of you who don't know, a weed is just a plant that you don't like. Any plant can, in theory, become a weed because it's somewhere where it's not wanted. And Bernie, what my question for you is, what are the most common, pest plants that we see in yards here in Hernando County?
Well, the interesting thing about it is that the plants that are weeds in the lawn, um, probably the worst one of the bunch is Bermuda grass in the lawn because we can't really do much about it. Anything, the lawn weeds fall into three classes. There's grassy weeds, there's broadleaf weeds, and there's sedges. And as a general rule, the products that destroy or really injure one family of plants don't necessarily affect other families of plants. That's not true for a non-selective like Roundup, which takes out everything. But if you have a grass killer, it's going to be pretty non-selective. There's some very rare exceptions, but for the most part, if you have a grassy weed in your lawn, there's nothing you can do about it except pull it because grasses tend to all die from the same product. If you have broadleaf weeds, they're usually fairly easy to take care of, and they're products that work very well. Annual broadleafs generally are the easiest because you use a pre-emergent, and the pre-emergent stops them from growing. And if you never let the weed become a weed, uh, it never becomes a problem. So if you use pre-emergent and you use it every year, generally the annuals all pretty much disappear in 2 or 3 years. You don't see them anymore at all. But the thing you have to remember, there's probably 100,000 to a million, maybe 2 million seeds per square yard, just sitting there waiting for the right conditions to germinate. And you get a little patch, little hole where there's some earth and sunlight, and the next thing you know, you've got a weed. So it's important that you take care of the grass so it shades out. That's your number one uh, uh, friend in solving the weed problem is maintaining a healthy lawn, and it shades out the weeds. And then if you have the sedge problem, there are some products that work quite well on sedges. And my favorite, because I like to name, is Sedge Hammer. Just sounds like it's going to do something for you. So,
Yeah.
but the worst weeds in lawns are the grassy weeds. So, uh, if you have St. Augustine lawn
with crabgrass growing in it. Whatever you
crabgrass
use to treat the crabgrass is going to kill the St. Augustine because it's grass.
Yeah, and but crabgrass is an annual, so the way you get rid of the crabgrass is you use a pre-emergent early in the year, and the crabgrass doesn't get a chance to grow. But the rest of the weeds, for the most part, you broadleaf respond. 2,4-D if you have a Bahia lawn, or atrazine or MSM for St. Augustine. MSM is really a very effective product on St. Augustine, but it damages or kills oak trees. So, if you go out and you just buy a product and you go into the store and you say, what's the best thing you got for weed control in St. Augustine? And the people don't ask you if you have oak trees. A lot of times they just sell you MSM, and then you start damaging the oak tree. So, and if you have expensive palms, you want to make sure that what you're using isn't going to hurt the palms. And some of these things, 2,4-D translocates, so you can spray 2,4-D, and with our hot weather and a little wind, it'll vaporize and move over and zap your landscaping. So, there's a problem with just about every one of the chemicals. So
yeah, there's definitely pluses and minuses.
Follow the instructions. The label is the law, and the label is what protects you.
Yeah. It's important to remember with palms, palms are monocots, right? So that's the same as a grass. So biologically, they're very, very similar to grasses. And then if you end up, I think there's even an argument you made, technically they are grasses, but you can, so whatever you use that, is going to zap a grassy weed or your grass, you have to think that it's not going to be good for your palm tree. That's just kind of like a common sense thing. But then if you look even deeper, you can see all the different effects that these, grass affecting herbicides can have on palm trees. One of the people that I spoke to at the plant clinic brought me a plant sample that I can't show you because it it greens out my green screen, but it's creeping beggarweed, which just a small little guy that's going to grow in. It's going to creep over. It almost creeps over top of your St. Augustine. And the thing, if you have Bahia, I know that you can put like triclopyr on it to take care of it, but that's given that it's not too hot outside or not too, you have to be in that really specific subset of conditions for it not to kill your grass. But in St. Augustine, it's really all you can do is pull it up as soon as you see it, because there's not really a herbicide that's going to.
I'm not sure about triclopyr on lawns. I've never.
I don't know that I don't know that you can. I don't know that it's easy to buy.
What, triclopyr? That's an easy one, but that's normally used on vines. Triclopyr is a great thing if you want to get rid of some bad trees. You can use just slash the tree bark and put triclopyr in the wound, and the trees die. That's hack and squirt. They use that with hack and squirt, definitely.
If you're dealing with if you have what is it, Brazilian pepper trees, that's the best way to take care of them. I don't we used method to take care of those, which that's hot. That'll get them. But I think you can use triclopyr on Bahia, but not on St. Augustine. I'd have to
4D, but not. I think you can.
Let me fact check. Let me fact check.
It's really funny because he used atrazine on St. Augustine and 2,4-D on Bahia, and a lot of these things they'll say for weed killer for southern lawns, and they'll have one of those two products. And unless you read the really fine print, it says in very fine print, do not use 2,4-D on Floratam. But we've had people that didn't see that little fine print at the very end. I'm not sure they read anything, but it says on the package for Southern Lawns, and then uh, it doesn't explain the exclusions. So you really need to read the label very, very carefully. It's amazing the amount of information that's on there, and it's amazing how easy it is to get in trouble and how much it costs to correct it sometimes.
It seems like some mixtures of some mixtures with triclopyr. So like the high yield, you don't want to use high yield, the triclopyr ester. You don't want to use that on Bahia. But then I'm looking at a couple different research pages. But this all just goes to show you really have to read the label, because one formulation of triclopyr is not the same as another formulation of triclopyr, but the labels will be very specific to exactly what's in, exactly what's in the product you're buying. So, it's all doing your research, and everyone's going to have a different makeup species in your yard. So it's really important to know what you have and know what herbicides you can use based on that. Different things are going to have different effects.
The interesting thing is the farm chemicals. If you're a farmer, you have to be licensed to use most of the farm chemicals. So most of the farmers are licensed, and there are specific products for just about every situation. So where we have 4 or 5 things that we can use without having to have a pesticide license, they have probably 150 different formulations, and they intermix things. So if you have 3 different kinds of weeds, you may be using 3 different mixes, and some fertilizer and maybe some fungicide, and spraying all those things at the same time. Whereas a homeowner, you have a very limited choice, and it's a good thing, because you get some of these homeowners that are out there spraying chemicals where they're wearing a pair of shorts, no t-shirt, and flip-flops, and the product says to use goggles, be fully covered, wear gloves, and wear boots. And so it may not get you for 25 years, or it may never get you, but why would you take a chance? If the manufacturer says this is going to be a problem, it's a problem.
The manufacturer does not want you getting sick and suing them, or and that's why they put that stuff on there, because it's like, hey, we want, they don't want you to get sick. That's not their goal. So you ought to follow that. Like Bernie said, the label is a law. I say it. I feel like I say it anytime I mention herbicides, but it's really that important. We do have a question here from Susan, who says, I've saved the seeds of the store-bought date palms. Can they reach maturity and produce fruit here? How many years might it take?
Yes, they can. And it's going to take a lot of years. Probably, I don't know which date palm it is, but I would think that you're looking at maybe 12 to 15 years from seed to fruit. So it's going to take a while. But it's definitely worth trying to do. If you get a few of those seeds to germinate, it's like avocado. The odds of producing an avocado from one of the avocado seeds is very, very, very small. But it doesn't cost you anything, and it might be a good thing. You may end up, or it may be a hybrid and not even produce the same type avocado that you started the seed from. But those are the kind of things that gardeners do, and you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your mistakes and failures. If everything goes well, that's what you expected. You don't have to do anything, because that's the outcome that you were looking for, and you got it. But when things don't go well and you're trying to figure out why, you're doing a lot of learning, and the more mistakes you make and overcome, the more educated you become. So I'm a firm believer in that. If you want to try something with this stuff, that's citizen science. Definitely, you should be doing it.
So I see here that Teresa put up some really good. The label is the law of pesticide safety article from Extension, and also how to read those pesticide labels, because I mean you don't really see it when you buy them, but most of those pesticide labels are like they're like taped on kind of from the factory, and then you pull it off and it unfolds, or it's 20 pages long. There's a lot of information there. Um, and not all of it is going to be applicable to you specifically, but a lot of it can be too. So you really need to know, because I mean, I think even with those, like when you empty out the bottle, like you don't just throw the bottle away. You need to do, the appropriate disposal measures, which normally is, you rinse out the bottle, you poke a hole in it so nobody drinks out of it, type of thing. Nobody's using it for storing water. There is like a herbicide disposal. That's really important too. Please don't just dump it down your storm drain. Don't throw it in your garbage. Dispose of it correctly.
Yeah, the landfill has times when they take those things and take care of them. So,
Yep. And Monique
some
says,
some of the products that's important that they be
mhm.
disposed of correctly.
Yeah, I mean when we at Swiftmud, that's like you do that. Well, that's what I did back there. Is we triple rinse it, and then you take a pocket knife and poke a bunch of holes in it so it doesn't hold water, and then you can get rid of it. The bet, like when we would do it, when we would triple rinse, you would triple rinse into the mixture you have. Therefore, not only are you not wasting the herbicide, you're not just dumping it on the ground. So you triple rinse into your rinse, and then you have into your mix, and then you have a clean jug. So once again, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to
I
leave them
really
below.
enjoy the questions because they generally have pretty decent questions. They're asking things that we either don't know or it makes us think. Because it's we have an audience that is definitely above average in gardening. So it's kind of fun to be able to talk to people that on a lot of these things they know as much or more than we do. So uh, it's
Um,
one of those things that after this program's over, if somebody brought up something I don't know, I do the research. So if it comes
mhm.
up again, I'm not going to look so stupid. Except it's hard not for me to not look stupid. So
um, going back to our other what we were talking about earlier. Maybe what are some examples of some of those broadleaf weeds um, that we were talking about earlier? Um,
I just happen to have the book on most of these things. So uh, the worst ones really are the sedges.
mm-hmm,
Um, the nut sedges, yellow sedge, those things really have been a problem because they tend to look like grasses, and then some of them have these little things that little balls on top with little things sticking out. They look like sandburrs, but they're not sticky. And chickweed, common chickweed is a really common. Uh, we see that a lot. Beggar ticks are a real problem. Uh, that is Biden's alba, And Biden's alba is probably the most common weed we have all over Florida. It's plant with a little white flower with a yellow center, and if you let them go, they just take over. Um, One of the harder plants to get rid of is the one with the little berries. I'll think of it in a minute. Thistles. Uh, we have a few thistle problems, and generally, if you catch the thistles early, you can stop them from being a problem. They're such a nasty plant. Most people make a special effort to get rid of them right away. Dandelions, the Caesar dandelion, dwarf dandelion, chickweed. We don't have the same dandelion here they do up north. We have it's in the family, but it really isn't the northern type dandelion. Hawksbeard, oxeye, the little yellow flowers, that becomes a problem. Dichondra and um, I can't think of the name real quick. The dollarweed, Dichondra and dollarweed,
Oh,
much kind of look the same, but they are from areas that have a lot of water, and generally, if you don't have a lot of water, you don't see that. But people that cheat a lot tend to have that problem. They really like being wet. Once they get going, they're pretty hard to get rid of. The spurges, I think it covers a lot of the problem. So, and most of those plants respond fairly well to a broadleaf herbicide.
mm-hmm.
And like I say, you need to be very, very careful when you buy a product that says Southern Weed Killer, that it is for your exact lawn, and it doesn't exclude something. So, if in the little fine print at the very bottom it says except Floratam, it probably will seriously injure your Floratam lawn. And the other thing is, if temperature's above 85 degrees, don't use any of those products.
Yeah.
When you poison the weed, you're poisoning everything.
Mm-hmm. And it just seems it's just what can handle it, really, is what that ends up being.
And the grass can pretty well tolerate it up to about 85 degrees. Beyond 85 degrees, it starts working on the grass just like it works on the weeds.
Yeah. Bill mentions that Celsius is a good herbicide for St. Augustine that can be used when temperatures get above 84. Good for all three types of weeds, not for Bahia. To my knowledge, that Celsius, that's one of those dicamba. It's a granule. Typically, that's not something we used a lot. I know that you can either put the granules in water and then spray, or even spread the granules out, I think. I did see, even if the temperatures get that high, to me, it may say if I wouldn't even take the risk, because that when it gets super hot, that's like a it's a exponential growth of the effectiveness of those herbicides. And then Monique says you never look stupid, and also that the hardest weed I have right now is doveweed, and they really like the rain. They do enjoy that doveweed likes poorly drained, really wet soils. That's another one that's like, it's really, because it's a monocot. It's basically a grass, so it's really hard to take care of. It in a vacuum, because that's another one you want to use those pre-emergents on. But if you really, really want to treat it post-emergent, you want something contact that you can spot treat it with. Your diquats, typically pretty nasty herbicides, but that you would only spray on that doveweed exactly where it is.
Yeah, doveweed is responds pretty well. This is the wrong time to be doing weed control. And remember, MSM, which is in a lot of these products, although you can use MSM now, it does tend to slightly yellow St. Augustine, and it does tend to really hurt oak trees. So you want to be sure. Dubweed, MSM, I'm pretty sure takes out dubweed in St. Augustine very, very effectively. So, and dicamba, there's some mixes with dicamba
that Celsius is a dicamba herbicide.
Yeah, but dicamba is kind of like 2,4-D. If you put it down hot and it can move into the vapor, into some of your landscaping. So you want a time where you don't have any big winds coming. That you'd like a nice calm day for a couple of days, so it stays in place and then doesn't present any problems.
Teresa put in question, dollar weed. Neighbor overwaters, but it's creeping into someone's yard. What can she do?
Dollar
weed.
There's some products. Image, one of their products works on dollar weed. It used to be I could just say Image and there was only one product. Well, Image is a whole family of products now, so I don't remember which exact one it is, but if you look up the label, here's a real interesting thing. If you look up the label on a pesticide, it'll tell you what it kills. So if you're looking at herbicides, it'll tell you all the products all of the plants that this product is going to take out. So if you look up the label, some of these things are very, very expensive. So you can start out, you Google, how do I get rid of dollar weed? And it comes back and it gives you 2 or 3 products. And then you look up the products where you find that one of them's $8 for a pint, and the next one is $146 for 4 ounces or what. That's a dramatic difference.
Yeah, some of those herbicides are really, really expensive. Like
on the
really
other hand,
expensive.
Some of these products, 11 ounces takes care of 15 acres. So if all you need, one of my favorites that is not registered for homeowner use, you used 15 cc's for 2 gallons, and 2 gallons will treat 5 acres.
Well, I mean, a lot of these, I know a lot of like the Roundup mixtures, especially even the hot ones we mix at SwiftMet, it's like 1%. So in a 100-gallon tank, we have a gallon. It's a very small amount. So these things are normally made in concentration, and you need to make sure that you're following the label recommendations for concentration. It'll tell you exactly what to do. It's like, oh yeah, this should be mixed at 1.5%.
Yeah, and sometimes it'll tell you that for this group of plants you use a 1% concentration, and for this group of plants you use a 4% concentration.
And you have to remember that with these things that are translocating, especially where if you put down something that immediately zaps it and it's done, well, it's never going to make it down to the roots if you're spraying it foliar. There's you have to, and this is why the ratios and the concentrations that they have listed on the label, that's why you follow them, because they were formulated to work at this concentration, to work this way. So it all just goes back to read the label.
If you're dealing with annuals, it really doesn't make any difference. If you zap it, you've killed it. But you deal with these perennials. Some of the stuff's 2-year plants. Some of it is true forever and ever perennials. If you don't want to spray a super amount of Roundup, there's some optimum amount that gets into the roots. There's some plants that develop such a heavy root structure that you can't really kill them. And bamboo is probably the one that really comes to mind. If you get a good stand of bamboo, uh, I, I got a good friend that planted bamboo next to his garage. He ended up getting somebody to come in with a backhoe to take it out. 700-pound root
Bamboo's
structure.
tough. Oh yeah, it's tough.
From
If you
four
don't want it
plants
there,
after
it's
10 years.
it's really hard to get rid of. So a couple comments here. Monique says, "What's good for one type of grass will damage another." Yep, a lot of these things are pretty specific. That image you were talking about is image. It says kills nutsedge, and there's a big old picture of dollarweed right on the front, labeled. So, and Monique also says most chems are not labeled for use in over 80 degrees, and that's true. A lot of times, it's right there on the label. Just read the label.
Well, remember, at about 85 degrees, the chemicals affect the grass just like they affect the weeds. So we have had more than one person bring us a picture of the lawn where they put down weed and feed on a 90-degree day, and the dead lawn follows the drop spreader picture. So, I mean, you can just see the guy going out there. He might as well have been out there with a blowtorch.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? If you did it with a blowtorch, it probably would have been less damage to the lawn.
Yeah.
Bassem asks, what variety of figs do you recommend for Central Florida?
And brown turkey.
Nice. It's awesome when you just know right away, huh?
Yeah,
you don't have to talk about it. You don't have to think about it. Boom.
Those two varieties do extremely well. The only problem with figs is if you have a nematode problem, figs are very susceptible to nematodes. So if you plant the plant and it grows well the first year, and the second year it doesn't grow anymore, and the third year it gets smaller, you have a nematode problem. If you plant figs in 4 years, they should be a pretty good sized plant. And if that happens, brown fig and Celeste both produce some really nice figs.
I wonder what's in that image. Is that like an atrazine or
Massaquoi?
Interesting.
Yeah, but see, that used to be all Image had was those forsages. And then the next thing you know is there's Image forsages, and there's Image like a Roundup type product, and there's an Image for this, an Image for that, and an Image, instead of being the product, becomes the group brand name. So. And it's a good product. They always did have good products. So,
yeah, I think that Image all-in-one, that is a sulfentrazone and a Quindarac. I'm not familiar with either of those. And yeah, there's several, because there's Southern Lawn Weed Killer. That's purple label. Lawn weed grass. Yeah, they have a few different ones, but there is one that says kills nutsedge.
When I started my career back in the 50s in an airport, the company I worked for did agricultural spraying, and I think it's interesting that every product that we sprayed has been outlawed. So. Over that period of time, they have replaced all these things. We had some products where if the poor guy that loaded the truck, the flag man, got hit with the aerial spray, he had to go strip and shower. So,
I mean, which really, if you get covered in herbicide, even with the ones today, you should still probably strip.
Well, he's sitting there with a mask on in the middle of summer, waving his stupid flag. That's kind of interesting. We used to calibrate the spray. We'd fly over the airport and measure how much we sprayed, and had the numbers all set for this particular path on how many acres it represented, and the amount of science in this agricultural chemistry is just unbelievable. And the amazing thing is, this all started basically during World War II. All the big research that led to all these things, a lot of it came out of the chemical warfare research in World War II. So all these products became available in the 50s, and you know, if you were my age, well, there aren't too many of us left, but assuming that you were my age, when you were a kid, you went out and you played in this beautiful lawn that was full of dandelions and clovers and maybe a few grasses, and nobody knew what was there, and there wasn't any way to get rid of just one or two things. Everybody had a composite lawn, and by the mid 50s, it was now possible to spray things. We had enough chemicals. You could go with a monoculture lawn. You could have one type of grass and get rid of all the weeds. And if you didn't have as pretty a lawn as everybody else in the neighborhood, you weren't a good husband. And it's funny because they advertised pretty much that way, that a man that couldn't produce a good lawn wasn't much of a man. And it was a very successful campaign. And they indoctrinated everybody into believing that you needed a lawn roller and an aerator and a drop spreader and a lawnmower, and you needed some rakes, and you needed the special bags to put everything in, and you needed all these different chemicals, and you needed some bluegrass grass seed. And it was just amazing. So you had a weed whip, and you had a little thing with a half circle for edging, and you could fill an entire garage with lawn care things. And I don't blame them for doing it, but I wish they hadn't. It'd be a lot nicer today if some of those old lawns were still around. I used to look for 4-leaf clovers. Well, nobody's got any clover anymore. Well, in Florida, of course, we have no clover to begin with, but there are a couple of clovers that could be grown here. People wanted them.
Yep. Monique says there's also a professional homeowner product, huge difference in the active ingredient amount. Yep. Most of the time, those with things like Roundup, it's pretty much blanket 50-50, I think, all the time. But with some of those other ones, you can have like the concentrations are much higher in the professional, the industrial mix. Like, it'll have a much higher concentration, and you'll mix it at a much different ratio. But they're also buying them in different amounts. I know that a lot of those, they'll buy like 1,000-gallon totes of Roundup and stuff that homeowners would never buy. So they're mixing these things, mixing these things a little bit different. So that is also important. Remember, most of the time you can't even buy the professional.
There is. I'm going to do something probably marginal. There's a company that provides lawn care products for professionals for a large percentage of the state. So there's probably one in a lot of our viewers' area. It's called Site One, and Site One handles all those chemicals that nobody knows about. The things that are specialized enough that the big box stores don't really carry them. The big box stores tend to have the same products, maybe 4 or 5 lawn care products under 18 different brands. But if you start reading the label, they're pretty much all the same product as far as active ingredient. So if you have take all root rot and you really need to use a different product, you can use the same thing a couple of times for fungus control, but the fungus gets acclimated to it really quick. So you can't keep using the same product. Well, it gets hard for a homeowner to find. Uh, there's only 6 of these fungicides, and you have to have at least 2 so you can alternate back and forth. You can do that at a place like Site One, where you might have a lot of difficulty unless you have a really good lawn care store in your particular neighborhood. Well, uh, it's something to think about. Another place to add to your toolbox, and a lot of these things are available online. A lot of them are available at tremendously different prices. So, uh, and if you're not allowed to buy it, they're not going to sell it to you. So, um, you don't have to worry about that. But the big thing you need to do if you're going to start doing those things, using some of these more obscure products, follow the label. I cannot overemphasize that. If you spray a product and you spray it with too little, you don't get the result you want. And if you spray too much and it's like weed control, you may kill the top of the plant and not kill the root and still not get rid of it. So there's an optimum amount, and that optimum amount is listed on the label.
Yeah, and then those companies spend millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on R&D and testing to determine that stuff. If your gut feeling is I need to use way more, well, I will assure you that it's not right. You should use exactly what's on the label.
I I had a instructor that uh, used to tell the story about the guy buys a product and it doesn't do what he wants, so he puts more on. And it doesn't do what he wants, so he puts more on. And he keeps putting more on until he becomes a moron. And unfortunately, uh, there's some of those out there. That's why it's nice to have this group, because this group uh, is probably beyond that point. If you're really trying to get educated, you're probably not out there in your shorts and flip flop spraying something that could be dangerous. So
it is, So a couple more comments here. Monique says used to sell chemicals. That's why I don't spray. I know how nasty most of them are. A lot of them can be pretty nasty. That's why there's a lot of very, very serious PPE requirements on some of them. Most of the really, really terrible stuff is only available to people, licensed professionals. But that doesn't mean that you don't need to. You still should wear your PPE with any type of chemical that you buy. Anything that is potentially harmful has what's called an SDS, a safety data sheet, that will tell you exactly. It's by law, it has to be available. It will tell you exactly the PPE you need to use, and that goes from pesticides, herbicides, anything. It all has them. And also, more is not better, and that is like I said, the label's a law. Like we say it all the time. It's really important to remember that.
you see these little flags that say chemicals just sprayed, do not enter, and there's a dog and a little child playing in the grass. So what are they thinking of? That thing may have some hormonal effect that doesn't show up for 30 years. So
yeah, you want to stay away from just follow the rules. Label is the law. Any type of label, just follow the rules for your own safety. So as we're kind of getting a little bit closer to time here, if you have any super difficult, really obscure questions, you can go ahead and email Dr. Lester. We'll fill his inbox up with all the really hard stuff. And if you have any fun, happy questions, you can go ahead and call Bernie on Thursdays at the extension office. Come and visit the Master Gardener Nursery. I believe was it Wednesdays and Saturdays? I think they're open. Wednesdays and Saturdays. I think right now it's 8 to 11. So go visit them.
8:30 to 11.
8:30 to 11. Go visit them. Buy some really wonderful Florida-friendly plants. They have all kinds of. Oh, there was a question that we missed, and I am so sorry. How green manure works. I'll get back to saying all of our information, but how green manure works. And to my knowledge, green manure is like that's where you're planting cover plants on bare soil in between crops, crop rotations and such. I think.
Okay, the thing that you have to realize what the soil does for plants. The soil does a bunch of things. Uh, Optimum soil is 50% dirt, 25% oxygen, 25% water. Well, the ability to hold 25% water and 25% oxygen depends a lot on the texture of the soil. If you had pure clay isn't going to do anything because it's all bound too tight. And if you have pure sand isn't going to do anything because it's so loose that it's not going to hold the water. So someplace in between pure sand and pure clay, we need a consistency in the soil that allows to have that consistency. Plus, we need to be able to supply the nutrients that the plant needs. And the nutrients that the plant needs are generated by the action of the microbes in the soil, breaking down the soil into its straight constituents so that the plant can absorb them. So if you have a sandy soil like we have, and it has no organic material, it has no nutrients, and it doesn't really do well with the plants. So we plant some green crops that are going to tend to generate a little nitrogen fixation themselves. They'll put a little nitrogen in as well. And the structure of the plant will tend to put organic material back into the soil. So that organic material does a whole bunch of things. First, it improves the ability to grow microbes. It allows the texture of the soil to improve, and everything tends to work out better. You have nutrients that become more readily available. That we have texture where we can have our 50% soil, 25% water, 25% air. That you have to remember the roots of all plants need some oxygen. There are a few plants that don't need much, but they all need some oxygen. And the leaves need carbon dioxide. So the leaves get their carbon dioxide from the air. As the carbon dioxide in the air goes up, plants actually become more productive. So if we put in more plants, we burn out more, consume more carbon dioxide. Now, if you do the green manure thing and you're improving the soil, you have to remember that in our sandy soil, after about a year, all this that we put in, all this organic material is going to be oxidized and disappear. So if you have a crop and it doesn't produce a lot of organic material for the soil, and you use this green manure, you improve everything. But you really need to keep doing that to keep building up the soil. And as the amount of organic material increases, as it decays, it tends to improve the no more organic material. But the little bugs are the unbelievable part that nobody realizes that are actually doing the work. For the most part, the plants really can't produce much if they don't have the microbes. So, and if you do the green manure thing, you're growing stuff to help the microbes, and you're helping the texture. Everything about it's a win-win-win. So I like it.
And what kind of plants are those green manures?
Well, they could be grasses. They can be. It depends on what the uh, other crop is. You know, if you're going to have a garden and you're only going to garden for uh, 4 or 5 months for your garden, and the rest of the year you don't have much, you should plant something that puts as much organic material,
Mm-hmm.
usable organic material back.
Yeah.
So,
And you want plants that also do a lot of nitrogen fixation. So
well, that helps. Yeah.
those are your. I'm pretty sure a lot of those recommend, in the pea and bean family. Your legumes.
The legumes.
Yeah. So chickpea, perennial peanut, those type of things would function pretty well as those green manures.
You know,
That's a great question.
farmers will do things like put in oats that they don't even intend to harvest.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And then one last question here. Well, not last question, but one more question. What are the negative effects of getting six inches of rain in 3 days and then no rain for 5 days with heat advisories? My St. Augustine looked a little sad after the tropical storm in this past week.
well, the negative effects of 6 inches of rain in 3 days is, remember, we want 50% sod, 50% dirt, 25% air, 25% water. When you get that kind of rain, you don't have the 25% air anymore. It's 50% dirt, 50% water. Very few plants like that. There are some, if you got water lilies, they'll do that. But grass is one of them that likes that. So
a lot. All your terrestrial plants are doing gas exchange with their roots. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. Like, there's a whole lot of gas exchange going on with your roots. And if most terrestrial plants cannot do gas exchange in liquid water, that's just not how they function. Aquatic plants sometimes can. That's kind of why their roots are always underwater. But terrestrial plants tend to not be able to. Okay, going back here, kind of continuing to plug while we get closer to wrapping up. All the extensions, events and stuff will be on Facebook at their page, facebook.com/HernandoEXT. We have a very wide variety of different extension and Florida-friendly landscaping topics that are available on YouTube under the Hernando County Government page. If you search Hernando County Government or Hernando County, you will find it. If you have any utilities or Florida-friendly landscaping specific questions, you can email me at my email right there on the screen. And for anything else that's Hernando County FFL, that's going to be your rain barrels, compost bin, workshops, water awareness events. Let's see. Anything that I'm doing is going to be right there. It's going to, I update this almost every single day with whatever's going on. And then you can find all of my socials where, once again, I put up everything that I do. You can find all that at the link on the screen. So if anyone else has any, Monique says that's when the devil weed takes over. After you get all that rain. Yeah. So any other last minute questions? If not,
I want to point out the fact overwatering and underwatering produce exactly the same symptom. So if you look at a plant and it's got too much water, you can't tell if it's overwatered or underwatered. And the lawn does something kind of neat. The lawn, if you can envision, is like a book. And when the leaf is like this, all flat, everything's fine and it's happy. But as it goes on into the week and it runs out of water, the leaf starts doing that. So if you have St. Augustine lawn, you go out and you look and the leaf is folded to where the angle is 90 degrees, that's time to water.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, if you water well, when the uh, we're only getting 1 day a week and not much rain. Generally, the at the end of the week, it's close to 45 degrees, which is it needs water again. Um, but you know, you can't look at it and tell whether it's overwatered or underwatered. All your plants with nice leaves, they wilt when they get no water. They wilt when they get too much water. Symptoms look the same. So
You can go touch the dirt. Like you go
that is what you
stick your
need
finger
to
in the
learn
dirt.
to do.
Yep.
If,
And if
if
it's
you
wet,
stick your
it's
finger in
not
the
water.
dirt, and if it's wet, it's got too much water, and if it's totally dry, it ain't got any water. So,
Just
so
use
there,
your use your
as
better
long as your
judgment,
finger
sticking your
has
finger in the
it
dirt.
between the two, and that's one of the things that gardeners are good at. If you garden a lot, especially if you got a lot of house plants, you can stick your finger in the house plant, and you know immediately whether it needs water or not, or if somebody overwatered it or underwatered it. Yeah. So, but you can't look at it and just tell uh, which problem it's got. So it's important that you uh, learn to pay a little attention
Mm-hmm.
so that you know what conditions you had before something happened.
Yep. Yep. And definitely, well, you got to kind of look for the combination of all your circumstances. You can't just pick one thing and be like, oh, well, that's it. Because a lot of things have like you said, the same exact symptoms. But I think that is about time for us. I want to thank everybody, as always, for coming and hanging out and asking us questions. And Brittany, I want to thank you for being so informative today. So,
I'm always glad to be here. I love to
and
talk.
yeah, and I do as well. So if once again, if you guys didn't come and ask all the questions every day or every Thursday, then we definitely would not be doing this. So once again, thanks everybody, and we will see you next week.
Bye now.